Hello and welcome to this very special interview. Today I'm in conversation with Amitabh Chaudhry, Managing Director at HDFC Life. Thanks very much, Mr. Chaudhry, for joining in today. Let me start by asking you about the consolidation in the insurance sector. We're seeing a lot of that happening, and that's something that usually happens when an industry matures. So do you think the life insurance industry has reached a certain level of maturity? Because penetration-wise, we still have a long way to go.
So, well, I think we have announced potentially the first merger that could take place in the insurance industry. We are still kind of not signed any merger documents as yet. We just announced the standstill agreements, and that's the first real announcement. But I think you have seen consolidation happen in the industry in terms of stakes exchanging hands between Indian promoters and foreign promoters, and in some cases new Indian promoters coming in. It's too early to say whether the industry is ripe for consolidation, because I think a lot of Indian promoters still continue to look for high valuations, and I think the recent run-up in prices of at least some of the insurance companies where the holding companies are listed tend to indicate that the expectations of the Indian promoters will only increase rather than come down. But yes, the insurance industry has gone through a struggle post 2010, and a lot of companies have had to change their models. I think gradually you see more mature operating models emerge, but there are some companies which are still struggling, and the only option they might have is to either sell out or get in partners who can do something else with that business. So I do expect in the next 3 to 5 years you would see more of change in stakes rather than actual consolidation happen. But yes, I also expect that some investors will get so frustrated with their inability to make money in the Indian market that they might actually just sell out. The transaction which we have announced is more about two very successful companies coming together. It has not been driven by any desperation on any side, and I think if one was to think of any merger which would have made sense for us and for them, I guess, from a strategy perspective, this would have been it. So obviously, deal is not done, far away from it. We are still in a standstill, but yes, ours is the first announcement in life insurance. Where a real merger could be potentially happening.
Absolutely. Right. So from a policyholder perspective, what's the advice that you would give policyholders when, they are part of a company that is being acquired, being merged? Because a lot of questions that usually come in at such a time.
Well, typically in a merger, if someone is getting acquired, it is expected and hoped for that the company which is acquiring is stronger, and that's why it is the acquirer. So from a policyholder perspective, yes, it is important to know and understand who the acquiring entity is, but and if it has the right reputation and the right credentials. But if it is that way, obviously one of the conditions which will always be taken care of in the merger is that no policyholder loses out. Please understand that IRDA individually ensures that every individual company has the right kind of solvency margin. So on a standalone basis, each of the insurance companies can pay off their policyholder liabilities. When the two companies come together of any kind, IRDA, as a part of the approval of the merger, will ensure that every policyholder is protected, and they will insist on that. And if that means that more money has to be put in the merged entity, they will insist on that too. I think even in our merger, if it goes through, we would have to ensure and convince IRDA of that philosophy also being carried through the life of the policyholder who has been sold the acquirer's policies. So I think regulator plays an important role. If the acquirer wants to ensure that the acquired entity and they can actually get the synergic benefits they're looking for, it is very important that the policyholders feel that they have benefited through this whole process.
So just taking that point forward, there are bound to be products that overlap, there are bound to be products that are withdrawn, possibly become more expensive. So what advice would you give policyholders if they're holding such products?
No, so if a policyholder holds a policy, the policyholder will get all the benefits under the policy through the life. Does not matter whether it's happening or not happening. Because we will carry that policyholder liability, and we will ensure that that policyholder liability and the terms and conditions of products are honored. So if tomorrow there is an overlap in the product, what really happens, and if we decide to drop a product, that from that date onwards, that product which has been dropped is not sold. So customer is not losing out. Existing customer never loses out. Ultimately, please understand that if the customer is not winning in this value proposition,